I'm glad. I'm glad.
I'll be back.
No problem.
I got 6 more days.
So close.
Yes.
So close.
I can almost reach out and touch it.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. 6 days.
Yeah.
So next time, next Wednesday, you will be a free woman.
No,
No?
next, the Friday after this Friday, so 27th.
Oh, 6 more like work
Yeah,
days.
6 more work days.
I see. Not 6 more days. Okay.
Sitting on Jack's.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Well, all right. Okay. So 2 Wednesdays from now, you'll definitively be a free woman.
Yes.
Hurt for him the most.
There you go.
I mean, that's not it.
Well, what all prayer requests have we got?
Say that again?
Yeah. What's the newest update on it?
Working on trying to get a radiator now. The body work's gonna have to wait because it's gonna be expensive to get the body work done.
Sure.
But they tore it up. I've got no passenger mirror anymore. They ripped the radiator out.
Mm-hmm.
So far, that's the only front end damage I see, but they did crack my bumper up pretty bad.
So the
I think they
radiator
were
is like
trying
the
to get up under the bumper.
yeah. So the radiator is the only thing you like have to fix to be able to drive it, right?
I think so.
Tires?
Well, tires. Yeah.
Ex is working on those.
Okay.
So,
And getting a camera.
do you know why someone would do that?
The only thing I can think of is that some of the drug addicts we got down the road, they were trying to get it for the metal, sell the metal, try to get some drug money. That's the only
Sure.
thing I can think of,
Yeah.
because that's one of the things police mentioned
Mm-hmm.
when I called.
I'm so sorry, honey.
Yeah.
That's just unbelievable, really.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get some tires on it, we'll try to push it and put it in front of the house where I can see it better.
Oh yeah.
That way, I know Brian will hear it because it'll be right in front of her bedroom window. So I know
Okay.
ain't nobody gonna mess with it.
Yeah.
My ex is working on trying to get a security system. We're gonna try to put some kind of outside camera out.
Yeah.
I know we can't get Wi-Fi, but maybe a trail camera or something,
Mhm.
just so I can see if somebody walks up in the driveway or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. That'll be good.
Because if I find out who it is, they're going to jail for trespassing and
Yeah.
vandalism.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. They need to face consequences for something like that. Senseless. What all else?
Kate and Carly both have been tested positive.
Again?
Yeah.
Oh.
They're not bad. Kate just sounds like he's stopped up,
Okay.
but says he feels pretty good, and Carly says she feels okay,
Okay.
and baby not showing any signs of it.
Good.
Hope not. Be the worst.
Man.
Where do they work?
She
Should
works
I
at
go
a
there?
daycare. She works at a daycare. I don't know.
That's,
That's
yeah,
really
that's a
good.
good one.
Yeah. Daycare's ground zero.
That's a good one right there.
Every time I hear about somebody who's gotten it for a second or third time, I get more and more nervous because I haven't gotten it my first time yet.
But they hadn't been vaccinated either.
Sure.
They have
Sure.
not.
No.
Fair enough. But man, yeah.
You know, I'm wondering about
I'm just
these
waiting for when
home
I bite the
tests
dust.
they sent out. You know, people are not reporting when they get it. They could test themselves and have it and not say anything. Keep
Sure.
on going to work and give it to other people.
They were doing it
I don't know, that
anyway.
was a smart thing to do.
But
I
you know,
really
they were doing it all day long, every day.
Before all of these home tests come about, you know, you have to go through, different places to get tested.
Yeah,
And all of that report came into the health department.
that's right.
But now the health department is not receiving it.
They're not being held accountable if they do
No.
have it and think, well, hey, I can go to work today,
Mm,
you know, and then they're spreading it.
Well, James swears that that's what he had, you know, when we went to my mom's for that wedding,
yeah.
and he got all that in his mouth.
Hand, foot, mouth.
I mean, he was really
It might have
sick, y'all. And that's
They
what he
test
keeps
wrong
telling me.
a
He
lot of
said,
times.
I'm just having a hard time bouncing back. He said, just like I did from COVID the first time.
Yeah.
So,
That man's been through too much the
Yes.
last year and a half. Too much.
so he's lost. He'll probably kill me for telling y'all. But before he got sick with COVID, the first time, he weighed almost 370 some pounds.
Mm.
The other day, he weighed 298 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Just about 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He said that stuff in his mouth, but he told us Sunday that stuff in his mouth. He couldn't eat anything
He
like
couldn't
puddings
eat,
and.
he couldn't even swallow water.
That
He
would
said
stop
it
him
was
from
terrible.
eating. That's for
At least the
sure.
weight loss was the
So-
upside to it.
And that's what Harley, she said, I'm going to school, I'm going to medical school. Cause she kept telling him exactly what it was. Cause working in daycare, you see stuff like that.
And get it too.
Yeah, so, but I think he's doing a little better.
Mm-hmm.
He just don't have any energy.
Yeah.
But I heard Miss Sue tell him Sunday that could be where he's not really eating good too, so that might be, some of it.
Yeah. It makes it hard. Messes with your immune system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember when I started eating fruits, man, I got sick so much less than when I only ate chips. It's crazy.
Wonder what the
Wonder
relation
why.
is.
I would get sick every 3 weeks or so back in the day, and my mom would always be like, "What are you eating?" And I'm like, "Oh, I had pizza for lunch and some chips." And then I got there's a place called Brahms down in like Texas and Oklahoma, and they have this meal called the Bag of Burgers, and it's
That sounds
6
delicious.
hamburgers for $5.
What a deal.
And I would just get it, and I would eat the hamburgers throughout the day, and that would be my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then I got sick. So yeah.
But it was good though.
Yeah. Any other prayer requests?
Well, my granddaughter is feeling better this morning.
I meant to ask you about that in the meeting. I'm glad.
When I started giving her antibiotic yesterday at 11, she went to sleep, and then yesterday afternoon she started like she had energy,
Mm-hmm.
and then we give her another dose last night, and this morning she went to school this morning.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Mm-hmm.
But I never seen, my children never had the earache,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing her have it, and she just couldn't be still, and
Yeah.
she would just run, and she'd shake her head, and
Mm-hmm.
she'd lay down on her dog,
Mm-hmm.
but she was just in so much pain.
Okay,
But she's better.
that's good. That's good. Okay.
Well, Joyce and Ann and the whole family from the loss of your brother.
Mm-hmm. Pray for Bertha Moore. When I saw her the other day, she had gone downhill. I knew that she had gone downhill some, but it was worse than I expected. I was supposed to call you and tell you after I saw her, and I completely forgot. I'm sorry, Banks.
That's all right, I know where you live.
You're the one who keeps sending me those cryptic notes, written in some mysterious red substance.
Where you feel.
All right.
If it's not him, it could be that masked man sitting
There
there.
you go. Chainsaw guy. Everybody loves Chainsaw guy.
It's birthday, she's still at home.
She's still at home, but she drifts in and out of sleep, like while you're talking to her, which actually made it kind of fun because I could talk to her about the little dreams she had. Like, what'd you dream about this time? She was like, a dog. I'm like, all right, cool. But yeah. So pray for Bertha and for Charles because I know it's hard. I know it's hard to watch. He's in pretty bad health himself. He's doing good. He's doing better than he was, but still So. Any other prayer requests?
Unspoken.
Spoken.
Well, JB's not feeling well today, but I think that's just, the way it is. He's already on the prayer list, and we do appreciate the prayers, but
Mm-hmm.
he seems unusually
Mm,
sort of wiped out today.
yeah. Okay. Mm. For too long, this whole thing will be all about prayer requests. We've been calling this Wednesday night prayer meeting for I don't know how many years, 50 years, right?
Yeah.
Within a couple months, it's going to actually be a prayer meeting. And so.
Pray for me too.
Yeah.
I don't know if my diverticulitis is coming back, but I've been having some problems with the upper portion of my stomach, which they said I had it in 3 different places.
No.
And I've been taking probiotics, but I feel like the probiotics does something to me.
Okay.
Now, they used not to bother me, but
Mm-hmm.
I've stopped taking them for the past couple of days.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just feel like I started taking them in the morning, and then I switched to night. And when I get up in the mornings, I feel like that I am just so full. And I'm not hungry,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't eat no more, no more like I used to,
Yeah.
because I'm just not hungry.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. I hope it's not diverticulitis.
I do too, because it was bad last time.
And definitely for Jennifer, that this problem gets resolved and gets stopped. I know that's going to be so hurtful and on your mind and heart.
Yeah.
I told the police officer, I said, I'm about ready to move, cause this is the 3rd thing that's happened at this house since my husband left.
Yeah.
I think somebody's trying to scare me out of there.
You live on an oil reserve? A buried treasure in your house or
Diamonds under
something?
there.
Some businessman off in
The
a.
only thing I can think of is the people that used to live in the house.
Mm-hmm.
I knew her husband was a drug addict at one time. The only thing I can think of is maybe they think that you still associate with them or whatever, and maybe they're trying to come back and find something. Maybe they think they're gonna find something in the house. I'm not a drug addict. I don't have no drugs. I don't have money.
Yeah.
I don't know what they want, but they need to leave it alone, cause I'm getting ready to put up some more no trespassing signs.
Yeah.
Cause if they come up in that driveway again,
Mm-hmm.
my ex has already said they're gonna get shot.
Yeah.
He's getting ready to buy a gun,
Sure.
cause he said he's gonna put security on that house with me and the kids in there.
Yeah. Yeah, we can pray for that. Let's pray real quick. Lord, as we sit down to study your word this evening, there are so many things that are weighing on us, troubling us. Our minds are filled with worries, with struggles, with anxieties. We're not walking in with clear and focused minds because we can't. Because we just came in from the cold, even though it's blisteringly hot outside. We just came in from the cold of the outside world after getting pummeled by so many things in the outside world. We're walking into this time studying your word together with 2 black eyes each And that makes it so easy, so tempting to be bitter, to become cynical, to lose any hope that things can work out for us, to lose any hope that there's any use even trying. And yet we know that that bitterness that grows up in us is not true. That cynicism, that hopelessness that grows up in us when the world batters us is not true. Because it's only part of the story. The struggles that are inflicted on us by the world around us are only part of the story. Because there is a good king who is turning everything that was meant for evil against us for good. You are turning all of the things that were meant to harm us for our good. You are turning all of the things that were meant to kill us for our good. You are turning everything that the world and the enemy meant to crush us for our good. He meant to crush us like grapes to be thrown away, but he ends up accidentally making wine. He meant to grind us down into a powder, but you step in and turn it around. Instead, he ends up making cement that you build into a firm foundation, a sturdy building. And so as we sit down to study your word together, I pray that you will fill us with the hope and the confidence and the comfort and the steadiness and the boldness that comes from knowing that, just like with Joseph and his brothers, what the world means for evil against us, what our lives mean for evil against us, what the brokenness of the world means for evil against us, you turn for good. And so we can carry on, not in bitterness, not in cynicism, not in hopelessness, not in numbness, not in jadedness, but in hope. Not the hope that comes from a Hallmark card, but the hope of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so be glorified as we bring in the insights that you give us through your word this evening. And all of God's people said, Amen. So, we spent the last week trekking through the book of James. If you weren't here last week, so you weren't able to get through James this week, that is okay. If you were here last week, but life hit you like a Greyhound bus, so you still weren't able to get all the way through the book of James, that is also okay. It happens, right? But we were trekking through the book of James. We were using the H.E.A.R Bible study method just to kind of walk through it and get a basic sense of what the Lord has to teach us through the book of James. As always, when we sit down with the scriptures and we use the H.E.A.R method to highlight, explain, apply, and respond to what the Lord teaches us in the book of James, we aren't trying to understand every single thing in a given chapter. We aren't trying to understand every single thing in a given passage. All we're trying to do is find one thing each day that connects with us, maybe encourages us, maybe challenges us, maybe lifts us up, maybe knocks us down in a way we needed to be knocked down. Sometimes that's the case. We're looking for one thing that resonated with us. And then we're allowing the Lord to speak to us through it and to to change us and guide us through it. So, how'd the book of James go this past week?
Pretty good.
Pretty good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's good. Well, one of the things that we talked about, one of the maybe kind of scary pieces of, I guess you could call it, homework that we talked about this past week was we wanted to try and pick one of the things that we felt like the Lord was speaking to us and prepare to just kind of tell the rest of the group about it. You're not standing up and teaching a lesson. You're not standing up and giving a sermon. You're not standing up and doing a lecture or anything like that, but just picking one thing that you meditated on, that you maybe did a H.E.A.R journal on in James this past week, and tell us just a little bit about that in a low stress environment, surrounded by people who love you and aren't going to laugh at you if it's not super engaging or exciting. Would anybody like to tell us just a little bit about one of the things that the Lord was speaking to you this week?
I will.
I'd love to hear it.
So I thought what the Lord was leading me to was James chapter 2, verse 17. So you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. So for my explain part, I got to thinking, and I was thinking, well, what are good deeds?
Yeah.
What applies as a good deed?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of thought about how in my day-to-day life, you know, how can I do good deeds that show the love that I have for God?
Yeah.
So, I kind of have my own little mission field,
Yeah.
being with the people that I work with and the kids. And I have to say, one thing that I really love about my first graders, they are very curious about God.
Mm-hmm.
They ask questions all the time. And I truthfully, try to give them the right answer in kind of child form.
Sure, yeah.
So that led me to thinking that, God told me that I needed more than faith, that I have to have more than faith. Faith is good, but it can't stop there. I have to be kind to people. I have to help people.
Yeah.
And that my faith should really come together to make me want to do all of this for other people. And if I don't do for others what God is prompting me to do, then do I really have the faith that I claim to have? If I can't do a service for somebody that I feel like God is leading me to do, then, what kind of faith do I have?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that went.
Yeah.
So when I come to apply it to my life, then I thought that different ways that I can help people out.
Yeah.
I could hopefully witness more at work. And since I've been in the school system, I've been really blessed to have the principals that I have had, because Miss Hedgepath is my third one. And of course, she's used to be a teacher there, and then an instructional coach, and now she's their principal. And out of all three of their principals, none of them have ever told me, well, you can't pray, or you can't, when your kids ask you something, you can't give them a biblical answer.
Yeah.
So I've really been blessed, and I kind of feel like that's God, God's blessing.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of not shying away from it. I am telling them,
yeah,
I do go to church and I do believe in God, And at Christmas and Easter, I share the Christmas story,
Mhm.
and I share the Easter story.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
I'm so surprised at the children
Mm.
who don't know
Mhm.
about God, right?
Mm.
You know, right here in kind of their backyard, the people that you're going to find who don't know about God.
Yeah.
So I've, you know, kind of made that my little mission.
Mhm.
And, you know, that's how I've looked at my entire job.
Yeah.
Everybody keeps prompting me, well, it's time to go, it's time to go. You know, you need to find somewhere else. And my same answer, when God is finished with me in Halifax County, he will let me know.
Yeah.
But until he, you know, doesn't tell me to move on, I'm going to be right there.
Yeah.
Because like I said, that's my mission field.
Mhm.
So in order to apply that to my life, I thought, well, I really need to help other people more so that I can let my faith in God show more.
Yeah.
That's one thing, you know, that I wanted to do. And another thing, I shouldn't worry about what kind of people that I give my help to. You know, their status in life shouldn't matter, their color shouldn't matter, their ethnicity, you know, anything, even their faith should not be a basis of if, you know, I am helping them or doing good deeds for them if it's coming from God.
Yeah.
So, and then I have written down that I need to be more loving and kind, just like Jesus was.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he was always like that.
Yeah.
So in my response, you know, that's the things I listed. I will do good deeds for others.
Yeah.
And these good deeds could come in the form of maybe buying somebody lunch, maybe just telling them that I'll pray for them, you know, helping somebody out. I mean, I get to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. We don't have to be there till 7:30, quarter till 8. So me and the janitor are usually the first ones in the building. And I really enjoy being able to witness and he's been having a hard time. He's kind of the older man. I know he went through prostate cancer.
Yeah.
And his health is kind of failing. So, when we went in this morning, he was just really down. So I asked him this morning, you know, can I just say prayer? So we had prayer together, and I mean, he said, Miss Powell, at the end of the day, I was putting my kids on the bus. He said, you just don't know how much that meant to me. He said, you'll never be able to understand it. So, you know, that's being kind. You don't have to spend any money to pray for somebody.
Yeah.
And I really felt that that's where God was leading me to go, to work on doing good deeds and, you know, showing my faith to other people.
That was fantastic.
That's what I had in a nutshell.
Preach it.
It was wonderful.
It was so good.
Almost ready to go.
Okay.
I was gonna say, like I said, it doesn't have to be a sermon, but you could have preached that as a sermon. It would have been a pretty good sermon.
Ryan knows I struggle with being able to pick out what verse I want. So when I've been reading, you know, I've been saying, okay, God, you know, show me what you want me to talk about, what you want me to learn this week.
Yeah.
What do I need to, you know, do more in my life?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's kind of helped.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I really like that you just prayed for him then and there. That's so awesome. That's so encouraging.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah, people like that when you pray for them. It's kind of funny.
They do.
You know, some people are like, no, I'm good, right? But on the whole, overall, people like it when you do that. It's good.
And I found out what's really neat when somebody's talking to you about something like that. So many people will say, I'll pray for you. But I think it's so much more powerful when you say, well, let's just pray right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
for you, and then we'll keep you in our prayers. But that way they
Mhm.
absorb it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is real. They really will pray for me.
Mhm.
You know.
So,
Often in my experience too, what I've found is that typically after praying with somebody right there on the spot, they want to talk to you more. A lot of times before that, they might, we have like cultural stranger danger on the whole now, right? Generally speaking, we want to be left alone, right? Some people more so than others, I am way more of a please leave me alone guy than a lot of other people are, right? Addison in there, right? Like he will literally start a conversation with anybody at any time, completely at the drop of a hat, right? Like we'll be somewhere and he'll just start talking to somebody and I'll be like, you know that guy? And he's like, no. I'm in his wedding now, but and so I'm more of a leave me alone guy than he is, but culturally in general, right? We have a leave me alone culture now, and yet for some reason, after you pray with somebody, it's like you've developed this spiritual connection with them, even if they don't believe anything like what you believe. And usually after that, now they want to talk more. Now they want to know you more. It's like you've created this bond between the two of you. Next time you see each other, it's like there's this connection there, even if you don't quite remember how you met them, right? You'd be like, we know each other, right? You'd be like, yeah, you prayed for me about my kidney, And you'd be like, what happened to the kidney? You're like, I no longer have the kidney, but I remember you, and that's a real thing. That's a real thing. Does anybody else have any other responses to what Diana shared with us? Well, does anybody else have anything that they connected with in the book of James that they'd like to tell us just a little bit about this evening? Like before, it doesn't have to be a sermon, it doesn't have to be a lecture, it doesn't have to be a full-on lesson, just sharing a little bit about kind of what jumped out to you in the book of James.
Well, I can go, even though mine is kind of similar to Diana's, but
Okay,
less
that's okay.
awesome. I picked James 2:26, which says, "As the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without deeds is dead." And that one really stood out to me because I'd heard a lot of the verses in James before, but I'd never, if I'd heard this one before, it never really stood out to me, and it just was kind of a different way of looking at the whole faith and deeds thing. So when I was explaining it, I said that James is making an argument that you show your faith and righteousness by what you do. And he talks about Abraham and Rahab right before that, and how the things that they had done showed that they were righteous, and we call them righteous. And then this verse is this final metaphor that he uses, where you have your body, which is faith, and then you have your deeds, which is your spirit or your soul. And when your spirit dies, your body doesn't go on living by itself. Zombies aren't really a thing. But then same thing. So if you don't have deeds, it shows that your faith is dead or worthless. And I just thought it was cool to think about how soul gives expression to your body and like your movements and things like that. It's kind of like the deeds are like sort of this embodied way to show your faith. And so that applied to me because I'm someone who has this faith that like I'm called to do something with my faith, and I'm called to do good deeds with my faith. And I thought it was neat when James talks about Abraham and Rahab, he's talking about them as examples and like people who are part of our spiritual family and people we can like follow after. And I wanted to follow their legacy of faith and righteousness. And in the respond, I felt really convicted to like think about how my faith is or isn't informing like my actions, kind of like you were saying, Diana. And it led me to like pray that Jesus would work through me and use my gifts and times for others, and to pray that my faith would be alive and that he would help me to love God by loving others.
Yeah. That's wonderful. That was awesome. So, James went well. James went really well. That was too wonderful. I don't know what to call them.
Insights.
Yeah, insights. I just said I didn't want to use the word lesson or lecture or sermon, so I was trying to figure out what word to use. But that was two wonderful insights. And both of those alone in themselves would be enough to spiritually nourish somebody. Like Diana could have sat down with somebody and shared that insight that she had drawn, and that would have been good spiritual food for that person that you shared it with. And Elise could have sat down with somebody and shared that insight that she had gotten as she was reading through the book of James, and it would have been good, nourishing, spiritual food for that person. Both of the things that you just shared, those were spiritual protein rather than spiritual junk food. I know that's a dumb analogy, but that was good spiritual food. It's like Matthew 4:4 says, I know I quote this constantly and it's annoying, but man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. And what you two just did was you fed us from the mouth of the Lord. You reached up during the week to receive food from the mouth of the Lord. It's like a mother bird, which is weird. Again, I know, dumb analogy, right?
Gross.
And then you turned around just now and you passed that food along to us. Actually, the analogy is even grosser, right? Because you digested that food and then you passed it along
Stop this.
to us. But that's what just happened. You just fed us with the food the Lord fed you.
That was really neat. It was, because it's more real. It's more personal, bringing it down to relatable to your everyday life. You know, that's a real struggle for you. That's a real struggle for me too. Yeah, thank you for telling me. And now it gives me permission to say, oh, you know, that's the same problem I face.
Yeah.
I have a question. How
I might
long
have an
has
answer.
this method of studying the Bible been around?
Good question. It's probably really, really old. I mean, I think really what it comes down to is this is something that a lot of people have been doing instinctively, but this takes it and it explicitly spells it out. I learned it from a book. I don't even remember what book, but probably about 5 or 10 years ago. And I kind of tried it out then, and it didn't really mess with it much after that. But I went through a really, really long, really, really dry period spiritually, where, you know, everybody goes through this, where you just, you sit down to pray and it feels like your prayers are just bouncing off the ceiling, right? And you sit down to read the scriptures and it feels like you might as well be reading the instruction manual to your PT Cruiser, right? And I was just in a really dry period, and I needed to just stop everything, strip down to the very basics, and I remembered this H.E.A.R method, and I started using that. And what it did was it forced me to stop trying to think like a seminary student and start thinking again just like a person reading the Word of God to hear from Him. And so it's probably hundreds or thousands of years old as a method, but it's at least 10 years old as far as I know. But yeah.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now this is one way among many that you can use. This is just a way that's been helpful for me.
Well, I've tried a lot of different ways, and I don't know, it seems like the more I do this here method, I don't know if it's the easier it gets, or maybe it's just the more I'm attuned to listen now. And, you know, like you say, maybe I can hear that voice.
Yeah.
So,
That's amazing.
I think on Wednesday nights, when, to me, you know, it's really eye-opening when you have different people, you know, breaking down the verse, because we all don't see the same thing. And that really helps a lot too, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. We can all take the same story or the same passage, and we can all kind of sit down and think through it using the H.E.A.R method or another method like that, and we can all get things that complement each other, right? But are just a little different, right? We can all see things from just somewhat different angles, and when we put it all together, when we sort of share with each other based on what we heard throughout the week, it enriches and builds up and augments and strengthens what we found when we looked at it. It's like I say a lot, 8 Baptists in a room is better than 1 Baptist with a master's degree, because now you have 8 Baptists hearing from God rather than 1 Baptist speaking for God, if that makes sense.
It gives you, well, it does for me, it gives me a better understanding of what I am reading. Even if I have to go back over and read it again, and just doing the H.E.A.R, it gives me a better understanding.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's almost like taking a verse and teaching it to somebody else.
Yeah. It's almost like you teach it to yourself, and then you can turn around and do the same to someone else. Yeah. And you know, if you're in a place where you're still sort of struggling with H.E.A.R, it still hasn't quite clicked for you, that's okay too. We don't all have to get to the same place at the same speed, right? We're all heading to the same destination, and so if we're, somebody's here on the track, somebody's here on the track, somebody's here on the track, that's okay. And so if right now it's still kind of confusing, you sit down and try to do H.E.A.R and it still doesn't quite make sense to you, that's all right. This is one of those things we learn from the inside, right? This is one of those things that we learn by doing. There are some things that you learn by reading about it in a book. There are some things that you learn by watching somebody else do it. There are some things that you literally just have to pick up and start doing yourself. And over time, you learn how to do it from the inside, right? I mean, preaching is one of those things, right? You can read books about preaching and you can watch other preachers, but you learn it as you do it, right? They say it's kind of like learning how to play the violin in public, right? And so at the beginning, you have no idea what you're doing, right? Remember those January 2019 sermons from James, right? I can't tell you what some of those sermons are supposed to be about. I legitimately cannot tell you what I was trying to say in some of those, right? You learn that by doing. And in the same way, reading the Bible is something you learn by doing. Kind of like you learn to ride a bike by riding your bike and falling off your bike, and then riding it some more, and then falling it off, or falling off some more, and then riding it some more, and then falling off some more, and your falls become fewer and further between over time, and eventually you realize you haven't fallen off in a couple of weeks, right? In the same way, you learn by doing. And so if it's still a bit of a struggle for you, that's okay. Don't panic. You'll get there. You will. Quick time check. What time are we at?
7:49.
7:49. Okay, cool. So we have 10 minutes. Well, next week, and by next week I mean starting tomorrow, or tonight I guess if you want, we will be going through, Kay already knows this from Tuesday morning, but we walked through a letter by Paul, then we walked through a letter by Peter, then we walked through a letter by James. Anybody want to guess whose letter we're going through next?
John.
You got it. We're going to walk through the letter of 1 John. 1 John is a little bit like James. John is a nicer person, I think, than James. When I read James, I get the sense that James has a similar personality to me, right? Communicates in kind of similar ways. Elise is nodding. But John is kind of like Mr. Rogers. He's very gentle. Even when he's saying rough things, he says them gently, right? Feels more like a warm hug from your father who's teaching you a hard lesson than it feels like a kick in the ribs from the school bully, right? And so John communicates very differently from James, but he hits on a lot of the same topics as James. And so we're going to see a lot of the same ideas over the next week, but we're going to see them from another angle. It's kind of like we talked about, right? We could all look at the same passage and come at the same things that complement each other, but from different angles. In the same way, James and John talk about a lot of the same issues, but from different angles, approaching it with a different personality and a different speaking voice and a different style. And so I'll be really excited to see what you get from the book of 1 John. Just like this past week, there are 5 chapters. There are 7 days between now and next Wednesday, which means there are 5 days of readings. So if you can't read a day, that's okay. You are not behind, right? If you can't read another day after that, you are still not behind. If you can't read a third day, then you're a little behind, not so behind you can't catch up, right? And so there are 5 days of readings, and just between now and next Wednesday, read a chapter each day, and then do a H.E.A.R journal on something from that chapter. I'm excited to see what we come up with this coming week. Just like today, next Wednesday, try to find one thing. Pick one of the things that jumped out to you or connected with you or resonated with you as you were reading this week, and prepare to tell us a little bit about it, kind of like Diana did, kind of like Elise did. And we can all share just a little bit with each other. We can feed each other with the word based on what the Lord fed to us. Does that sound good? Now that we've watched it play out, does it sound just a tiny bit less horrifying than it did before? All right.
It's very relatable.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, who would like to close us out in prayer?
I will.
Okay.
Dear Lord, I thank you for this opportunity to be together and to share your word and to learn from each other the things that you've revealed to individuals. And we can take these things, Lord, and apply them in our hearts and in our daily lives. I thank you for Ryan as a teacher, that we're learning from him, that we can take those things and teach someone else, Lord. I thank you for this day and the many blessings, all the people that were mentioned earlier when we began, different physical and emotional and hard situations going on in their lives. Lord, you know each and every one. Help them to feel your love and feel our love through their situation. And touch them with your healing hand.
Thank you so much. All right.
I just wanted to keep you know that when she said last week she wouldn't be here, she forgot the, when she worked at Pilot, she had a little girl